I love Robin Williams. He is one of my favourite humans to have ever existed. That being said, Old Dogs is not one of the best films I've ever seen. It's decent enough. But in terms of ranking Robin Williams' comedies, I'd say it's quite low down the list. This was released in 2009 and directed by Walt Becker, written by David Diamond and David Weissman, and stars Robin Williams and also John Travolta. And the narrative is really interesting, and it's one for which I had quite high hopes. And I think maybe that's possibly why I didn't feel it was as good as it could have been, because I think I expected too much, which might be my fault, but maybe not. If you feel the same, then perhaps I'm not alone. The description from IMDb is as follows, and this is quite long, so bear with me, but I think it's worth reading the full thing. Charlie and Dan have been best friends and business partners for 30 years, and their Manhattan public relations firm is on the verge of a huge business deal with a Japanese company. With 2 weeks to sew up the contract, Dan gets a surprise. A woman he married on a drunken impulse nearly 9 years before, annulled the next day, shows up to tell him he's the father of her twins, now 7, and she'll be in jail for 14 days for a political protest. Dan volunteers to keep the tykes, although he's uptight and clueless. With Charlie's help, is there any way they can be dad and uncle, meet the kids' expectations, and still land the account? Tagline for this is, life is not childproof. There are many films that deal with people who are not parents looking after children and being out of their depth. And I will say that this puts them in some very entertaining situations. Charlie is John Travolta and Robin Williams plays Dan. And they do have some interesting performances. I always think Robin Williams acting with children is so brilliant to see, because he's got such a childlike presence in his style of comedy, and his performance is great. All of the performances are really good. Travolta's good. We have a pretty great cast. Laurie Loughlin's in this. Matt Dillon, Bernie Mac, Rita Wilson. Well performed throughout. The children are really great. And there's nothing bad that I can say about this film inherently. There's nothing about it that stood out as being, something that I would have done differently myself, something that I would have maybe omitted from the film. For the most part, everything in it is good. It works well. The narrative flows well. As I said, the casting and the acting's all top notch. No problems with any of that. I think it's just not as funny as I was expecting. We get a variety of, different locations, different settings, to give us a good opportunity to explore different styles of comedy and to give the actors a different, set of circumstances with which to work. And they're fine. It's fine. But it's just not, it doesn't live up to its potential. With a cast like that, a narrative like that, it just could have been so much more. I don't think it's a bad film. I enjoyed watching it. I will probably watch it again at some point. But it's not one of the films, if I were to recommend a Robin Williams film, I probably wouldn't name this within the first top 10, maybe even 15. Not a terrible film, but not the best. I'd say it's worth a watch if you like comedy or anybody who is in it, or the sound of the narrative, because it's reasonably well executed. It just could have been so much more. It only has a Metascore of 19, which is not great, to say the least. IMDb score of 5.4 out of 10 across 36,500 reviews, which is, I think, reasonable. I'd probably give it a 6, which for a Robin Williams film is a pretty low rating for me to give it. But 19 is a little bit harsh, even I will admit that. Definitely give it a go if it sounds like your kind of film, as it's not a bad film. Just don't expect anything. I should also point out this is a Disney film. Don't expect anything sensational, because it is lacking in certain areas. Not bad, not great. Old Dogs, pretty middle of the road. Worth a watch, but don't bother prioritising it.